As you walk down Church Street into the village, you will notice the image of a towering woman with her arms raised in the air. Is it from the wailing sirens of the police cars? Is she defiant or scared? Who is this woman? The mural was created by Troy Brooks, a Toronto artist who paints portraits of mysterious and powerful women. Troy invited me into his home to talk about his Church Street mural, gay rights, and world pride. So we can start talking about your mural.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved with the Church Street Mural Project?
Well, James Fowler, who's one of the curators, approached me and he said, "You really should submit a package for this." And I said, "Well, I'm not a mural artist, you know," and I didn't submit anything. And then he kept on me he really championed my work for this whole project, and I'm really grateful to him for that. But so I did end up submitting a package, and what really convinced me that I had something to contribute, after all, was when we had this meeting. And it was a bunch of elders, you know, people in the village who had lived through, you know, the bathhouse raids and, you know, all the things in the 60s and 70s that happened with gay rights. And so I was really moved by that. I remember I was sitting there and I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff, things that, just impressions that I had while people were talking. And one of the things that I wrote down was visibility at any cost. And you know, to be gay at that time, you know, I mean, it was tantamount to being a child molester, basically. So to actually stand up and be accountable for being gay and sort of have the courage to define yourself at that time, I was really moved by that, you know, because I didn't have the courage. And I came out in a very safe environment, you know, and it was still crazy traumatic for me. And so I had huge respect for that. So I went away and I designed this image that was really, you know, people think it's about the bathhouse raids, you know, it's sort of got that title, but really what the image is about someone having the courage to be visible and having an uncompromising sexual identity. You know, like, it's complicated. They're male, they're female. It could be a drag queen, it could be a transgender person. You know, it's not really defined in the image, but she's just
the woman on the mural.
The woman with her arms up, yeah, and there's the fire truck, and she's just creating havoc around her. But she's still completely visible and not backing down. And that was the image. It was more elemental than just depicting the bathhouse raids. Because for me, what really struck me about that meeting was the courage of those people, you know, and people forget now, you know, how difficult it was to be a gay person back then. And you were thrown in with thieves and pedophiles, you know, and so anyway, I was really moved by that. That's how it all came about.
Yeah, because the bathhouse raids happened in '81,
Right.
And I was thinking when I was looking at your mural, like Stonewall happened in '69.
Yeah.
It's like 30 years later. Do you think we've come a long way for gay
Yes,
rights?
we have come.
Or the fact that I always think we're still talking about it. Like 30 years seems like a long time to still be at the place that we are.
Any movement takes 100 years. I'm sorry, but you know, like, you know, I mean, look at when the women's movement started, and they're still not getting paid the same as men, you know. I think it takes a really long time, but I'm so thrilled. I mean, God, when I see kids going to the prom with their gay partners, I mean, that's unfathomable when I was a kid. I couldn't even imagine doing that. So, you know, yes, we've come a very, very long way, and I think it's important to we're not there yet, but it's really important to acknowledge the fact that, yes, you know, we have come a very long way. You see on TV, it's, you know, like when my dad saw Ellen coming out, you know, when they could see it in their TV, you know, that was when it became palatable for them, you know, and they could kind of, they could conceive of me having a life, because before then it was an unspeakable, you know.
That's the one thing about, you know, especially people of my generation, I feel like we don't know our history to know how...
No, we don't.
Because how shittier it was for those people to come out,
yeah.
and how we owe it to them.
Yeah.
you know, that's why it's important to know our history. It's important to know what happened in Stonewall.
It is. I agree with you, and you know, I think it's something that should be taught. It's human rights, right? You know, and just like we're taught the Civil War, we should be taught all human rights.
Do you think that people, say my age, just younger gay people, don't know our history?
No, I don't think they do for the most part at all. I don't even think they know 10 years ago. You know? So forget Stonewall. They don't have a concept of how far we've come in before it was on TV, you know, for instance. Mm-hmm. You know, when Will and Grace came out, you know, and Ellen and Rosie and all those people, you know, it made a big impact. And I don't think people remember what it was like before that, you know. It either needs to be more of that, and you know, like
more history, or
more history, you know, more history, yeah. Especially in something like gay culture, and you know, we were talking about it earlier. It just gives everybody context, and it just makes you feel like you were saying, you know, do you feel like asking me the question? Do I feel like there's been progress? My God, yes. And that's what hopefully these murals will kind of attest to, that there has been progress, and it's important to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge how much further we have to go, but, you know, it just gives you a context, you know.
You know, I wish that younger generations would just have more passion for, you know, how important being gay is. And I know it, like, you don't want to talk, we're talking about labels and stuff, you don't want to just be a label because you are who you are, but like for me, being gay is so important, and I realize that now with everything that I'm doing, you know, I want to help other gay people, I want to help younger generations by being brave in myself.
Yeah. And
I realize, you know, it's not just about pop stars and fashion and all that stuff, gay culture, it's, you know, it's about the history, it's about Stonewall, and figuring out, you know, that we are people that went through shit. And we need to realize that, instead of just going to and realizing that that's what Pride is about, is remembering all that and being proud that we can be who we are, yeah. Instead of just going to party, you know.
Pride and the gay history thing that's you know, with this whole mural project is important for any culture, because it really, what's behind it and lessons to be learned from it is how important it is to be visible in a culture, and how I mean, anyone can appreciate the strength it takes to stand up and be accountable for yourself when you're not the popular majority, you know. That applies to everyone, you know, to one degree or another, you know. And that's an important element in any city, you know. And there's always a minority. Everyone will find themselves in a minority situation at one point or another, you know. And it's really important to see that the representation of that in gay culture, in gay history, you know. I mean, my God, the strength it takes to stand up and be accountable for yourself when you're not the popular majority is considerable. Especially when they lump you in with pedophiles and criminals, you know. Like, that's that people that sort of came of age in that era that had the courage to be out deserve a lot of respect, you know.
Do you think, like, how do you feel about being gay? Like, is it to you something that, you know...
Best thing ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gave me a perspective that not a lot of people get to have, you know. I sort of became what I thought would be my worst nightmare, and realized that it's a gift. It's a gift because, here's why, because you realize how important it is to define yourself on your own terms. And that is just key, I think, to living a happy life. You can't listen to the static, you know. You really have to define yourself based on your own judgments and your own thoughts about things, you know. And once I really let go of everybody else's preconceptions about what gay was, and just sort of lived on my own terms, you know, shift happened. And that's the gift, I think, of being gay, you know?
Yeah, and it's also, I think, because it is hard to come out for anybody, right? And I think that strength that you get from going through that experience, or, you know, the bond that we all share as being gay, or lesbian, or whoever you are, whatever, to come out like that. Like, I remember when I was a kid, and I, you know, had gay thoughts, And I remember also thinking, like, I'm never going to tell anybody, you know?
Right.
And now I look at myself, and now I'm the same way, right? Oh, I wouldn't even want to be straight. I love being gay. And, you know, that change that I had to do and I had to work through. You know, it took a long time, but, you know, I did it. And I did it at a really young age,
And
too.
isn't it a lesson of acceptance, don't you find? Like, I mean, you just have this fantastic sort of full circle kind of thing where, you know, when you're a kid, you think, oh my God, it's my worst nightmare. If I'm like that, I'll die. And then when you become that, it's like, it gives you this incredible full circle perspective, you know? And you, everything in your life that comes after that, you realize how important it is to look at it with your own eyes, and how easily you can be influenced by outside sources, and how really dangerous that is, you know?
That's why I think it's so important to be, you know, living your authentic self, and to show younger people that, you know, like people like us that just said that, right? That we love being gay. And, you know, when I hear about kids killing themselves because they're gay, like, you just think, oh my God, they would have been like this, you know, if they would have just held on, like, you know, and I was there, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think, like, look at the person I became. I'm so proud of myself. And it breaks my heart every time I hear of these kids killing themselves, because it's such tragic, needless death. And, you know, they could have really become something, and, you know, that's where we just be able to treat the person next to you like the way you want to be treated.
That's why visibility is so important, and why, you know, I mean, I always hate the gay police when somebody comes out and you know, gay guys say, oh, it's about time, you know, like, we really need to be accepting of it. People come out on their own time, but it's so important too. And I can understand people getting frustrated, because without that level of visibility in the culture, you have these kids who have no context, and they can't see themselves in the culture, and as an adult being happy, because they have nothing to associate themselves with, or nothing to relate to, like, you know, and I just think, you know, visibility at any cost, it's so important in the culture, so that you have these kids who feel so completely isolated in these small towns when they're not like anybody else, to have something to aspire to, you know? It can be a lifesaver.
What does it mean for you to have WorldPride come here, especially with your mural up in the village?
Well, it's huge. What does it mean to me? Well, it's fantastic to have taken part in this kind of really visible celebration of gay history. You know, I mean, that's what it really is the whole mural project was to make gay history visible, and to make that more of a cultural kind of element in our city. You know, and even though at first I kind of felt like my art isn't really conducive to kind of a movement or anything, because it's so particular and it's so nichey, you know, I am so glad that it all worked out, because I'm really proud to have taken part in this. It's fantastic, you know, and all the murals are so beautiful, and you know, very proud. That's all I can say.